Have you ever looked back at your childhood and realized the villain in your story was actually yourself? For 32-year-old Chloe, growing up in a sprawling, sunlit mansion meant having absolutely everything she ever wanted, except a sense of gratitude. She was the textbook definition of a spoiled heiress, and she directed all her venom at one person, Maria, her tireless, soft-spoken Filipina nanny. For years, Chloe made it her personal mission to break Maria's spirit, throwing violent tantrums, destroying meals, and hurling cruel insults. But what Chloe didn't know, what her wealthy, desperate parents hid from her, and what Maria silently endured, was a staggering secret of unimaginable sacrifice. It took 2 decades, a dusty box of hidden letters, and a desperate, frantic flight across the world to the rural provinces of the Philippines for Chloe to uncover the devastating truth. This is a story of a shattered ego, an unbreakable bond of unconditional love, and a tearful confession that will make you rethink everything you know about family, forgiveness, and the true cost of sacrifice. The sprawling estate in the hills of Connecticut was a gilded cage of marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and echoing silence. 10-year-old Chloe reigned over this immaculate kingdom like a tyrant in a tiara. Surrounded by mountains of untouched toys and designer dresses, she possessed an insatiable hunger for more, paired with chilling lack of empathy. Her world was curated for absolute comfort, insulating her from the slightest inconvenience. Yet, beneath the pristine surface of a privileged existence, profound emptiness festered. Chloe had learned early on that demanding attention through tantrums was far easier than owning it through affection, turning her into a deeply unhappy, resentful child who viewed kindness as weakness. Her parents, Richard and Eleanor, were successful executives trapped in a relentless cycle of corporate warfare. They loved their daughter desperately, but their guilt over absent bedtimes and missed recitals had morphed into dangerous indulgence. Realizing their attempt to buy her happiness had only bred monstrous entitlement, they resolved to change course. They wanted Chloe to understand the value of hard work, humility, and respect. Exhausted and at their wits' end, they sought help, knowing they needed someone whose spirit could not be easily broken by a petulant child. They needed a grounding force, someone who embodied the very virtues their daughter so desperately lacked. Enter Maria. She arrived on a crisp autumn morning, carrying a single, worn-woven suitcase and a smile that seemed to radiate its own gentle heat. Hailing from a modest farming province in the Philippines, Maria had crossed oceans to support the family she left behind. She stepped into the cavernous foyer with quiet dignity, her hands callous from years of labor but her eyes brimming with a bottomless well of maternal warmth. She didn't see a monstrous, spoiled heiress. She only saw a lost, lonely little girl who needed a steady, loving hand to guide her back to the light. Visual beat 1, a modest Filipino woman standing at the massive front door of a mansion holding a battered, traditional woven suitcase. Chloe's reaction to Maria was immediate and visceral. Standing at the top of the grand staircase, the 10-year-old glared down at the new arrival with undisguised contempt. She hated Maria's simple clothes, her thick accent, and the genuine, unpretentious warmth that felt entirely alien in their cold household. When Maria extended a welcoming hand, Chloe simply slapped it away, declaring loudly that she didn't need a babysitter, especially one who looked like a peasant. Eleanor gasped, reprimanding her daughter sharply, but Maria simply lowered her hand, her expression remaining perfectly serene. The battle lines were drawn, and Chloe was determined to win. The first few months were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Chloe made it her daily mission to break the Filipina Nanny. She would deliberately spill blackberry juice on the pristine white carpet, blaming Maria for the mess. She tore up the colorful, hand-drawn flashcards Maria made to help her study, scattering the pieces like confetti. Yet, no matter the provocation, Maria never raised her voice. While Chloe's previous nannies had quit in tears within weeks, Maria simply knelt, cleaned the stains, gathered the torn paper, and offered Chloe a fresh glass of milk, her patience an immovable mountain against Chloe's relentless storms. Desperate to share a piece of her heritage and perhaps soften the child's heart, Maria spent hours one Sunday preparing a traditional Filipino feast. The kitchen swelled with the rich, comforting aromas of adobo and sinigang. She set the dining table beautifully, hoping food might bridge the bitter divide. But when Chloe sat down and inspected the unfamiliar dishes, her face twisted in disgust. Without a word of tasting it, the spoiled girl pushed the expensive porcelain plate off the table. It shattered loudly on the tiles, the savory meat and broth splattering across Maria's meticulously polished shoes. Richard and Eleanor were livid when they discovered the ruined dinner. Richard grounded Chloe for a month, revoking all her electronics and playdates, his voice echoing with genuine fury. He apologized profusely to Maria, offering her a bonus for her suffering. But Maria gently declined the extra money. Later that evening, Chloe sat fuming in her dark bedroom, feeling entirely victimized. The door creaked open, and Maria slipped inside, carrying a small tray with a simple grilled cheese sandwich, Chloe's favorite. Maria placed it quietly on the nightstand, whispered a soft goodnight, and left without demanding a single word of gratitude. Despite Maria's relentless kindness, Chloe's cruelty only evolved, becoming more targeted. She noticed that every Friday, Maria received a thin, blue email envelope from the Philippines. The nanny would sit by the kitchen window, reading the letter with tears glistening in her eyes, clutching a faded photograph of a young boy. Recognizing this as Maria's vulnerability, Chloe hatched a vindictive plan. One afternoon, while Maria was doing laundry, Chloe snuck into her small, modest quarters. She found the wooden box where Maria kept her precious letters, snatched the most recent one, and callously tossed it into the roaring fireplace. When Maria discovered the ashes, something inside her fractured. For the first time, the impenetrable wall of her patience cracked. She didn't yell, nor did she run to Chloe's parents to tattle. Instead, she sat on the edge of a narrow bed and wept silently, her shoulders shaking with profound, suffocating grief. Chloe, hiding in the hallway, peeked through the crack in the door. She expected to feel a surge of triumphant power, the thrill of finally breaking her enemy. But seeing the raw, unadulterated devastation on the older woman's face, a cold, unfamiliar knot of deep shame formed in the child's stomach. The following morning, the atmosphere in the house was heavy, thick with unspoken tension. Chloe sat at the breakfast island, pushing her cereal around, unable to meet Maria's gaze. Maria moved through the kitchen with her usual efficiency, but the radiant warmth that usually accompanied her was gone, replaced by a hollow, mechanical silence. Eleanor noticed the shift immediately. Taking Maria aside, the mother demanded to know what had happened. When Maria reluctantly confessed, Eleanor burst into tears of sheer mortification. The parents realized their daughter's entitlement had crossed the line from spoiled behavior into active, malicious cruelty. The punishment was severe and absolute. Richard canceled Chloe's extravagant 11th birthday party, donated half of her toys to a local shelter, and forced her to write a formal apology letter. Chloe screamed, cried, and threw the worst tantrum of her life, tearing her room apart in a blind rage. But her parents stood firm, their faces grim and unyielding. In the aftermath of the storm, as Chloe sat exhausted amidst the wreckage of her bedroom, she waited for Maria to come in and gloat. She waited for the inevitable, "I told you so." But the gloating never came. Instead, Maria entered quietly with a broom and a dustpan. Without a word of reproach, she began sweeping up the debris of Chloe's rage. Chloe watched her, bewildered. "Why aren't you mad at me?" the child finally croaked, her voice hoarse from screaming. Maria paused, leaning on the broom handle, and looked at Chloe with a gaze so fiercely compassionate it made the girl flinch. "Because anak," Maria said softly, using the Tagalog word for child, "anger is a heavy stone to carry, and you are already carrying too much sadness for someone so young. I am here to help you lift it." That moment marked an imperceptible shift. The hostility didn't vanish overnight, but the venom was extracted from Chloe's bite. She stopped sabotaging Maria's work and started observing her instead. She noticed how Maria repaired her own worn-out shoes with duct tape so she could afford to buy Chloe a small, sequin hair clip for her birthday. She noticed how Maria would sit up late under a single dim lamp, meticulously mending Chloe's torn dresses, so her parents wouldn't have to buy new ones. The spoiled girl began to witness the quiet, grinding mechanics of selfless love in action. That moment marked an imperceptible shift. The hostility didn't vanish overnight, but the venom was extracted from Chloe's bite. She stopped sabotaging Maria's work and started observing her instead. She noticed how Maria repaired her own worn-out shoes with duct tape so she could afford to buy Chloe a small, sequin hair clip for her birthday. She noticed how Maria would sit up late under a single dim lamp, meticulously mending Chloe's torn dresses, so her parents wouldn't have to buy new ones. The spoiled girl began to witness the quiet, grinding mechanics of selfless love in action. With the money gone, Richard and Eleanor tearfully told Maria she had to leave. They couldn't even afford to pay her final month's wages, let alone her severance. It was a humiliating, heartbreaking conversation. Chloe, listening from the narrow hallway, felt a crushing wave of panic. For the first time in her life, she realized how desperately she relied on the woman she had once tortured. But Maria simply shook her head. She refused to pack her battered woven suitcase. "Family does not leave when the house catches fire," she stated firmly, moving to the tiny kitchen to prepare supper. For the next 4 years, Maria became the absolute pillar holding the fractured family together. She took on night shifts scrubbing floors in an office building to buy groceries, keeping her daytime hours free to ensure Chloe stayed focused on her studies. She stretched every meager dollar, turning cheap ingredients into magical, nourishing feasts. She became the mother Eleanor was currently too broken to be, and the steady anchor Richard had lost. Chloe, stripped of her entitlement by poverty, finally saw Maria not as a servant, but as a warrior of unimaginable grace and staggering fortitude. Despite the grim circumstances, Chloe thrived academically, fueled by a newfound, desperate work ethic inspired entirely by Maria. She earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university, a miracle that brought light back into her parents' eyes. The day before Chloe left for college, Maria handed her a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside was a beautiful, vintage silver compass. "So you will always find your way back to who you are meant to be," Maria whispered. Chloe hugged her, a fierce, clinging embrace, realizing this humble woman had entirely salvaged her soul. College absorbed Chloe in a whirlwind of ambition and independence. She called home often at first, always making sure to speak to Maria. But as the years accelerated, the calls grew sparse. Chloe graduated at the top of her class, landed a high-powered job in finance, and slowly climbed back into the world of wealth she had lost. She bought her own penthouse, wore designer clothes again, and became consumed by her career. During this rapid ascent, Maria, aging and tired, quietly returned to the Philippines, her mission in America complete. The communication between them faded into silence. Decades slipped by. Chloe was 32, incredibly successful, and entirely alone. The well she had clawed back felt hollow, echoing the emptiness of a childhood mansion. Her parents had passed away peacefully a few years prior, leaving her to clean out their modest apartment. It was there, hidden in the back of her mother's closet, that Chloe found an old, heavy accordion file. It was labeled simply Maria's Contributions. Intrigued and slightly confused, Chloe sat on the dusty floor and opened it. What she found inside would violently shatter her entire understanding of her own life. The file was stuffed with meticulously kept bank receipts, Western Union transfer slips, and handwritten ledgers. As Chloe sifted through the yellowing papers, her heart began to hammer against her ribs. During those 4 brutal years of their poverty, Maria hadn't just worked a night job to buy groceries. The receipts revealed that Maria had been intercepting her own meager pension from the Philippines, combining it with her janitorial wages, and anonymously paying off the interest on Richard's remaining debts to keep them out of jail. She had literally bled herself dry to keep Chloe's family afloat. But the final document in the folder was the one that broke Chloe completely. It was a letter from a rural hospital in the Philippines, dated 15 years ago. It was an invoice for a life-saving surgery for a young boy, Maria's son. The invoice was marked unpaid. Attached was a desperate letter from Maria's sister, begging Maria to send money. The date on the letter matched the exact month Chloe had carelessly thrown Maria's blue envelope into the fireplace. Chloe realized with nauseating clarity that she hadn't just burned a letter, she had burned a mother's lifeline. And yet, despite Chloe burning that vital connection, despite the endless cruelty she had inflicted, Maria had stayed. When Chloe's family lost everything, Maria didn't abandon them to return to her own struggling son. Instead, she stayed and paid their debts, sacrificing her own flesh and blood's comfort to protect the very girl who had tormented her. The staggering weight of this unconditional, agonizing sacrifice crashed down on Chloe. She sobbed violently, the sound tearing through the empty apartment. She had been saved by a saint she had treated like date, and she had never even said thank you. Within 24 hours, Chloe was on a plane to Manila. She abandoned a multi-million-dollar corporate merger, ignoring the frantic calls from her board of directors. None of the wealth mattered anymore. She was guided by a singular, burning imperative. She had to find Maria. She had to look into the eyes of the woman who had traded her own life for Chloe's and beg for forgiveness she knew she didn't deserve. Clutching the silver compass Maria had given her all those years ago, Chloe stared out the airplane window, praying she wasn't too late. Navigating the chaotic, vibrant streets of Manila was only the first step. The address on the old letters led Chloe deep into the rural provinces, a grueling 12-hour bus ride through winding mountain roads and dense, emerald green rice terraces. The stark contrast between the towering skyscrapers of her world and the humble, stilted wooden houses of Maria's reality was incredibly humbling. Every bump in the date road felt like a physical reminder of the vast distance Maria had crossed to endure Chloe's cruelty. The journey itself was a pilgrimage of penance. Chloe finally arrived in a small, remote barangay. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of wood smoke. Holding a crumpled photograph of Maria, she asked the local villagers for directions. Her halting attempts at Tagalog met with curious but kind smiles. They pointed her toward a small, weathered house at the edge of the village, surrounded by blooming bougainvillea. As Chloe approached the wooden gate, her heart hammered wildly in her throat. She gripped the silver compass in her pocket, taking a deep, shuddering breath before she raised a fist to knock on the frail door. The door creaked open slowly. A young man stood there, his features strikingly familiar. It was a boy from the photograph, Maria's son. He looked at the impeccably dressed foreign woman with mild confusion. When Chloe breathlessly asked for Maria, his expression softened into a look of deep, knowing sorrow. He gestured for her to come inside the dimly lit, modest home. There, sitting in a woven rocking chair by the open window, was Maria. Her hair was entirely white now, her frame frail and small, but the gentle, radiant heat in her eyes remained exactly the same. Maria squinted at the doorway, her vision clouded by age. "Sino Yang?" she asked softly in Tagalog. Chloe fell to her knees, the expensive fabric of her trousers sinking into the woven bamboo floor. "It's me, Maria," Chloe choked out, tears instantly spilling down her cheeks. "It's Chloe." Maria's breath hitched. She leaned forward, her trembling, callous hands reaching out blindly until they found Chloe's face. The old woman traced the contours of Chloe's tear-streaked cheeks, her thumbs brushing away the moisture. "My little storm," Maria whispered, her voice cracking with raw, unbridled emotion. "You found your way back." The confession poured out of Chloe like a ruptured dam. She wept as she apologized for every spilled drink, every torn flashcard, and the unforgivable cruelty of burning the letter. She pulled out the agonizing medical invoice and the bank records, begging for forgiveness of the life Maria had sacrificed to save a family that didn't deserve her. "I know what you did," Chloe cried, pressing her forward against Maria's frail knees. "I know you gave up everything for me. I was a monster to you, and you treated me like a daughter. I am so sorry." Maria didn't speak immediately. She simply stroked Chloe's hair, letting the younger woman purge decades of toxic guilt. When Chloe's sobs finally subsided into exhausted hiccups, Maria lifted Chloe's chin. "I did not sacrifice my life, Anak," Maria said softly, her voice steady and resolute. "I invested it. When I looked at you, I saw a child drowning in things she did not need, starving for the love she did. My son survived. We endured, but you needed saving too. And looking at the strong, beautiful woman kneeling before me, I know my investment was worth everything." Chloe stayed in the village for a month, using her financial expertise to establish a massive community trust and a medical clinic in Maria's honor, ensuring her son and the village would never face hardship again. But the money was the least of her offerings. She learned to cook adobo under Maria's patient guidance. She swept the bamboo floors, and she finally learned the true, heavy weight of gratitude. The spoiled heiress had died decades ago, but in the heart of the Philippine mountains, under the loving gaze of the woman she once hated, Chloe was finally born.